Today's the 13th day after we came across the pass and entered enemy territory. The tension between my fellow battalions has been rising since the day before yesterday. The excitement has turned to irritability in some, merciless boredom in others. We all hate the Balkan. It's raining day and night. My skin under the neoprene is macerated like a sponge, and if this itching between my toes isn't a fungus, I'm a fucking clanner. The only one who's calm is our preservist. He's called Degenesis, or something like that, a damn Franken who seems to think he's better than the rest of us. He hasn't spoken a single word yet, has worn his gas mask since we set out. Just sits on his horse, green oilskin cape around his shoulders, looks around like a radar. Left to right, right to left. Irina's had enough. She strips down the top of her suit, knotting the rubber arms around her waist. Her white top is soaked. I stare like an APOC on burn. She looks over at me with a come on smile. I look away. Damn, she caught me. There's only one way out. Confrontation, of course. Famulancer Irina, do you remember the rules? Oh, I'd like to do the same. She says nothing, only gazes at me with her almond eyes, shoulders her fungicide rifle and marches on. I grasp the shaft of my splayer tighter. 2-0 to her. I walk past a rust-eaten sign laying in a puddle in the concrete in front of me. Maribor. Never heard of it. Concrete plates from a road that has long since lost its shape. In the clefts, there's a sprawling gray scrub that clings to the clothing or scratches our skin. Bastard. I kick it tough, but it only rustles as if bored. On both sides of the road, sickly conifers approach the concrete runway, but they keep a good distance of 50 paces. I don't want to know what the bygones have buried here along the road. Irina has a good head start, just entering the shadows of one of the concrete skyscrapers, but suddenly is nothing more than a silhouette. I cannot see the others anymore. Damn. I'm alone out here. I suddenly shiver in my suit. Automatically, my hand goes to the belt, flipping open a pocket and taking out a small brown glass tube. Tranquilizers. I swallow one of the red pills without any fluids. When we come back to the spittle, I'll be a goddamn pill burner. I quickly follow Irina, breaking into a light jog, holding the splayer in both hands. The rustling in the treetops is unnatural. It talks to me. It tells me the story of the mountains. They're so massive, so omnipresent, pressing down on my chest. There's a movement out of the corner of my eye. I look around sharply, almost stumble. Where the trees suddenly come closer to the street. I hear a soft puttering, glancing at the mollusk container on top of my splayer. The spore-infested muscle trembles and spasms. Cold sweat runs down my back. The mollusk is still. Surely I just shook it with my jogging. I force myself to slow, holding the splayer upright and still. The muscle hits the glass, relaxes, and sinks slowly to the bottom of the container filled with nutrient fluid. But there, another pumping, and another steady like a heartbeat. The rustle of the wind in the treetops solidifies into a low but at once high-pitched singing that generates weird visions of big eyes, clear, starry sky in me. A lizard on the street in front of me looks up with her head cocked, says, "Irabire," which totally makes sense to me. It disappears in a crack in the concrete. The air's getting thicker, flooding my lungs like water. Yet I know that I only have to Irabire tuan hirarete. I look up. There are the others, between two towering concrete colossi. Irina is kneeling on the floor, propped up on one hand. Something dark flows from her nose like water. Dr. Radovan lies on his back with his eyes wide open, stares into the starry sky on a bright day. His mollusk container is broken and forms a slimy puddle filled with broken glass on the light gray concrete. The vibrating muscle has moved over a meter. Astonishing. The champ kneels only 2 paces away. His head is lowered as if he were counting the ants on the floor, caught in utter concentration. His horse is nowhere to be seen. Then I see the stranger. He He appears like a mirage. His movements are incredibly fluid. It looks as though he has no joints and is made of rubber. On his head, he wears a mask with a dozen glasses that all seem to stare at me. A thick strand of hoses of various length hanging from his mouth area, nimbly swinging from one side to the other, like a radar. Jatate? Like an octopus searching the ground for something to eat. The chant has become unbearable, undulating in sync with the stranger's movements. Jatate? No, I'm not afraid. He's a Deshani, no question, and I know that he approves of my answer. Now he's approaching me. I hadn't noticed before, but he's naked. And this cold? Now he's here, his grotesque mask close to my face. 12 mirror images of my chalk-white face look at me from the glass panes of his mask. Smiling. The mouth forms a word that I understand but do not know. The only thing I hear is the Deshani's breath. It sounds hollow and far away, hissing through the hoses. Suddenly I see a shadow behind the Deshani, hear the rushing of a staff through the air, then a thud. The Deshani's thrown aside. The champ stands only 3 paces away from me, absorbing the impact of his splayer strike by turning his body halfway around and then following the psychonaut. I could see him turning a lever on the shaft of his weapon and the blade splaying open. Then the dissonance of 1,000 tortured souls howling in pain tears the silence to shreds. The Deshani screams, the hoses jutting from his mouth area like spikes. He's on his feet before the Champs can deliver the final blow, dodges and tears off the Preservist gas mask. The Champs kicks him away, pushes the splayer into the Deshani's chest, and presses him to the ground. The Psychonaut thrashes around like a fish on a spear, throwing his head side to side. The hoses whip the floor. Then Champs presses the button at the shaft of his weapon. The blades close, bisecting ribs and spine with a crash. Blood sprays from the wound when the Preservist jerks the splayer free. Sinews still hanging between the blades, turning the Deshani into a puppet on bloodied strings. Then they're torn apart. The body crumbles. The screams stop. The champ steps over to me. For the first time, I see him without his gas mask. His face is a mass of flesh. His ears and nose look like pink molten blobs of wax. White bandages hang from the holes where his ears used to be. Only his eyes are still completely intact, focusing on me briefly with an inquisitive glance before looking away again. Irina is already back up and stumbling towards me. She takes my hand and pulls me to my feet. Who would have thought that the bastard was deaf? She whispers to me. Who would have thought?